Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry I'm late. I will show you why I was late in a few minutes. But tonight we're going to talk about the vanishing of history, and I'm going to lead off in a way that may not make a lot of sense right away because you may not make the connection. But this is an email that I just received in response to my recent observation about the book that broke Jordan Peterson. And the subject of the email is the JBP Industrial Misery Complex. As a loose follower of Peterson's in 2017, I can verify that his self-help crap helps no selves. My track record of success was marginal short-term improvements, followed by deep drops into relapse. I lost a bit of weight at the time, but had no defenses against reliance on drugs for anxiety management. Sounds familiar, huh? Fast forward to 2018, and immediately upon learning what a gamma is, for the first time, I made instantaneous and vast improvements to functional intelligence and efficiency as an employee and husband. Your harsh and unrelenting criticism of lies to oneself has led me to phase out weed from my life entirely. I read books again. I can make it through the day on just Jesus and the truth. For that, I am very grateful. My point is that Peterson's drivel is like a candy stream of goop in one's ear that feeds an illusion of small progress day by day. Your call-out in Jordanetics of him creating an army of lobster losers all skittering around the bottom of a dark pool is so freaking true that, to quote Peterson, it's hard to think of anything more true. And so what he's saying there and what he's pointing out is very relevant to what we're talking about tonight with regards to the vanishing of history. Because what's the commonality between the vanishing of history and what Jordan Peterson is doing to these people that he purports to help? And the difference in both cases is that the truth is being hidden. The truth is being avoided. And because of that absence of truth, it's not possible to learn. It's not possible to make steady, long-term, and continuing progress and improvement in your life. Think about this. Think of the truth as a destination. If you have no idea what the truth is, if you have no idea where the destination is, what are your odds of getting there? They're pretty close to zero. Douglas Adams actually makes a massive joke about that concept in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. You know, his method of detection is to literally wander around and hope that the holistic interconnectedness of all things will lead him where he needs to be. He even talks about when he gets lost driving his car, he just tries to identify a car that's driven by somebody who looks like they know where they're going, and then he just follows them. And of course, you know, Adams, being a brilliant writer, talks about how while this very seldom leads him to where he's going, it often leads him where he needs to be. But it's a joke. You can't get where you're going if you don't even know what the destination is. You can't understand where the world is progressing to if you don't know where it actually came from. That's why the evil of the world, not just the socialists, but the evil of the world, the wicked, is always living in year zero. The current year is always year zero. The French revolutionaries did it. The Khmer Rouge did it. They're always trying to address history by vanishing it. And there's a fascinating article that I highly recommend that you read. Ron Unz, who, in my opinion, is one of the most significant and bravest intellectual figures today, is doing an amazing job of preserving historical information that has otherwise been swept under the table. It's really remarkable. I'm going to read a couple sections from it, but here's the link if you want to go directly there. I strongly and highly recommend it. And he's talking about, he begins, it's a very long article. It's like 20,000 words. It's the size of a small pamphlet book. But he's talking about a very famous historian named A.G.P. Taylor, who wrote a book called The Origins of the Second World War that has largely been disappeared. And what he was really surprised to find was that this was not the only account that had been disappeared. And Taylor was hardly alone in suffering such retribution. Indeed, as I have gradually discovered over the last decade or so, his fate seems to have been an exceptionally mild one, with his great existing stature partially insulating him from the backlash following his objective analysis of the historical facts. And such extremely serious professional consequences were especially common on our side of the Atlantic, he's talking about the US, where many of the victims lost their long-held media or academic positions and permanently vanished from public view during the years around World War II. I had spent much of the 2000s producing a massive digitized archive containing the full contents of hundreds of America's most influential periodicals from the last 2 centuries, a collection totaling many millions of articles. This is why I have such respect for the guy. I mean, he's literally doing the work of like entire orders of monks. And during this process, I was repeatedly surprised to come across individuals whose enormous presence clearly marked them as among the leading public intellectuals of their day, but who had later disappeared so completely that I'd scarcely ever been aware of their existence. I gradually began to recognize that our own history had been marked by an ideological great purge, just as significant, if less sanguinary than its Soviet counterpart. A leading example of such a disappeared American was journalist John T. Flynn. Now, I have to admit, I'm a very well-read individual. I'm interested in history. I have a minor in history. I read all kinds of history for fun. I'd never even heard of John T. Flynn. Probably almost unknown today, but whose stature had once been enormous. You know, those of us who are reasonably well-read and historically aware, you know, we know about journalists like, H.L. Mencken and Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, etc., etc. But, who's this John T. Flynn? Anyhow, imagine my surprise at discovering that throughout the 1930s, he had been one of the single most influential liberal voices in American society, a writer on economics and politics whose status may have roughly approximated that of Paul Krugman. His weekly column in the New Republic. So this is not a conservative figure. This is somebody who is very much considered a progressive, a liberal, he was probably a Democrat. His weekly column in the New Republic allowed him to serve as a lodestar for America's progressive elites. In other words, he was a genuine opinion leader. He was somebody who was just as significant in his own way as, 60 Minutes was a generation ago, as, I don't even know who it would, things are so are so atomized now that we don't even have people who are that significant. But His regular appearance in Collier's, an illustrated mass circulation weekly reaching many millions of Americans, provided him a platform comparable to that of a major television personality in the heyday of network TV. He was wondering how he, Unz was wondering how he compared to Walter Lippmann, who I am familiar with, and I had heard of he said the very famous columnist of that era. But when I checked, I saw that across the hundreds of periodicals in my archiving system, there were just 23 articles by Lippmann from the 1930s, but 489 by Flynn. So Flynn was a much more significant figure historically than the guy we remember today. And then he talks about a historian named Harry Elmer Barnes, who was one of the most frequent early contributors to Foreign Affairs. And he was one of America's premier liberal academics. So he was like, the Richard Dawkins of his day. But he's been vanished. And so, this is really, really astonishing. This is really amazing. We haven't even, imagine how much information, how much history, how much knowledge we've lost. Imagine how much we wouldn't know about the Peninsular War if Oman hadn't written his history. Well, this is the history of America, and it's been largely vanished. And so somebody asked, is this archive related to the site that I just linked? Yeah, you can find it there. It's linked there. And I highly recommend that you make a practice of downloading as much of this stuff as possible. Why was Flynn vanished? I don't know. Most of these guys were vanished because he just uses him as an example. But we know that Barnes was vanished because he addressed the circumstances discussing America's entrance into World War II. Most of these guys were vanished because they told the true story of World War II. And it's the reason that it's happened quite clearly is because it violates the narrative that we've read, which is Germany was bankrupt after the World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, and so they turned to Hitler, and then for no reason at all, Hitler decided to kill all the Jews and take over the world. It's very, very clear that that's not true. None of that's true. And it's very clear that FDR and Churchill were much more integral in starting the war than Hitler was. Again, this does not mean that Hitler was a good guy, that he did nothing wrong, etc., etc. He wasn't. He was a very bad guy. He was horrible for Germany. But that doesn't mean that things happen the way that you think they do. Yes, of course I know about Thomas D. Lorenzo's work on Abe Lincoln. Very similar. And so, so the point is that if you want to understand the truth, if you want to understand history, you need to read these people and not the fiction writers, not the people who tell you that Germany wanted to take over the world in order to kill all the Jews and destroy the Judeo-Christian ethic of America, which is a nation of immigrants. I mean, all of that stuff is total, absolute fiction. Total nonsense. And so, people say, well, is it the Jews? To a certain extent, but it's not just, it's again, when you focus solely on that, you miss the point. The point is, this is Babylon. This is the Tower of Babel. This is the prince of the world. If you're focusing solely on a group it's about reality, it's about what actually exists, not about gay guys and rollerblades. It was funny when he told it, but if you keep telling it, it's like a little kid who just imitates the adults because he thinks he's going to get the same laugh. It's not going to happen. Anyhow, so that's that's what you need to understand, is pay attention to the history. Look at the history, read these old historians. They will teach you much more truth than you can find with all of these things that are constructed in order to uphold the current narrative. So now, in keeping with my promise to yes, I know he said his joke in the chat. Do you people not understand that I'm much more intelligent than you are? I know he said his joke in the chat. And then a bunch of people started repeating it like infants. Don't do that. Okay? When somebody tells a joke, it's not funny to repeat the joke right away, right there. Okay? Bonus lesson for today. Anyhow, furthermore, just so you understand, when you do that, you make it much less likely that Owen is going to contribute to the chat when he shows up, because he doesn't want to interrupt things, which he doesn't interrupt if he just cracks a joke every now and then. But when you try to completely turn the chat over to that, then it becomes disruptive. So deal with it. Anyhow, so to get back to the point, the history is the truth. Or history helps us point towards the truth. Now, we can't always trust these old historians. We can't take everything they say at face value. But the fact that they have been disappeared, the fact that they have been vanished, tells you that there is something there that is important enough that someone felt it was necessary to hide it. So, now, I really admire what Unz has done. People say, oh, you're jealous of Peterson, you're jealous of this. No, you know who I'm jealous of? I'm not even jealous. I'm a little bit envious of what Ron Unz has done, because it's massively significant. It's hugely significant. Somebody compared Unz's archive to Infogalactic. No, Unz's archive goes well beyond what we've done with Infogalactic. Not that what we've done with Infogalactic isn't important. It is important. And I hope that you're utilizing it. If you haven't, you definitely have to download Transporter, the extension that lets you turn any link to any link to Wikipedia automatically takes you to Infogalactic instead. It's wonderful. Very much appreciate the guy who wrote that. But what are we doing in addition to that? That's what I said. We're going to have a little reveal here, and so this is what we were working on. In fact, what we were just doing was deciding what the titles are going to be called, because it turned out that simply reprinting the 1919 Junior Classics was not the optimal way to print them. You know, there were, while a lot of the changes in the 1949 and 1958 editions were not positive, the some of them were actually desirable. And so this is a rough draft. These are not the final illustrations. These are the 1958 illustrations. But this is a early look at what the Castalia Junior Classics are going to look like. And so the first volume is Fairy Tales and Fables. The second volume is Myths and Legends. The third is Tales of Greece and Rome. The fourth is Heroes and Heroines of Chivalry. The fifth is Stories That Never Grow Old. The sixth is Stories About Boys and Girls. The seventh is The Animal Book. The eighth is Stories of Courage and Valor. The ninth is Tales of Sport and Adventure. And then the 10th is the Poetry Book. And so, we're working hard on the selections. Some of these are just going to be exactly, these are all public domain. I mean, this is from the 1919 edition. The colors are not quite right here. The volume 3 is actually going to be purple, and volume 9 is going to be royal blue. We thought that the purple for Rome made sense, and blue for Sport and Adventure made sense. We may tweak the colors a little bit more. These illustrations will be replaced, but the actual spine layouts and so forth, that's all new, and we've created that. And so we'll be announcing the crowdfunding campaign for this in the relatively near future. So we're also going to be adding a few, like the stories that are going to change the most are probably book 6 and book 9. Book 6 and book 9 are going to be more akin to the 1958 version, because the older version of book 6 was called Old Fashioned Tales, and about 50% of it was just Alice in Wonderland. And so that didn't, we didn't like devoting that much of it to Alice in Wonderland. Yes, Alice in Wonderland is a classic, but we didn't think that it was worth leaving out Mark Twain and some of the other great things. We're looking into some of the leather stuff, but it would be very, very expensive. We're definitely going to do Royal Octavo. We're looking into the possibility of allowing you to choose whether you want Octavo or Royal Octavo. I think it's probably going to be possible to choose which you prefer. But by 8.5, it's kind of our regular 58 editions. What they really got rid of is they got rid of a lot of the American Indian stuff. They got rid of a lot of the Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett stuff, and they also got rid of the Christianity stuff. That's why we intentionally decided to keep the chivalry in the title of the third volume, because in the 1919 edition they talk about the importance of Christianity and being a knight and all that sort of thing, stuff that was left out. So we are going to have colored art inside. We're not going to do original colored art. There's tons of really good public domain art that deals with a lot of the various fairy tales and stuff that we're using, and so we're going to put that in there. What will we call this edition? It'll be called the Castalia Junior Classics. And I will probably write a new introduction to it. It'll also have the original introduction from the president of Harvard, and our goal is to make this a set that is legitimate heirlooms. If we order a hardcover set, I don't know. I think the size is the size of the paper. I'm pretty sure it's the size. It's got to be the size of the paper, because it's the same when you do, the paper is the same size whether you do a hardcover or a, well, here, I can just show you. Let me see here. So here's a pair of here we go. Yeah, we'd love to do Little House on the Prairie books, but not yet. Okay, so this is the original 1958 edition of the Junior Classics. This is what the covers used to look like. So you can see that we use that sort of as a beginning point, but we improved upon it. So this is what's called octavo size. And you can see that we do books in octavo size. Here's one by Owen Stanley, another one by Nick Cole. You can see that they're the same size, more or less, right? So that's octavo. This is Royal Octavo, which is the size we are definitely going to do. This is the Dark Avengers Sidekick by John C. Wright. You can see the difference in size side by side. So Royal Octavo allows you to have bigger type. So this is another Royal Octavo, one of my books, Summa Helvetica, A Casuistry of the Elvish Controversy and Other Stories. Again, you can see these are a little bit more comparable because in terms of page count, but the Royal Octavo is a little bigger. Now there's good arguments both ways. I mean, the bigger books are easier for parents to read to their kids. Possibly you could argue that the smaller books are easier for the kids to hold. And so estimated cost, it's going to be about $350 for the hardcover set shipped wherever you are. And we're going to try to have, we're also going to try to have a more expensive edition, somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for a set, but we don't know yet what we can do. We don't know yet whether we can to justify that. We always like to have a more expensive backing option because a lot of our more well-off supporters understand that this helps the projects, and so you always want to have it. Now, for those of you who just want to get the books to read as ebooks, we will make the entire digital editions, all 10 digital editions available for $35. So that's a good deal. And then if you just want to get an individual volume, then they're going to be 50. So no, these are not going to be limited editions. Absolutely not. The whole point is to make sure that this information is preserved for future generations. And so, yeah, I don't like these are better because the case laminate is better because it lasts longer. You know, I mean, that's why they do textbooks like this. So I love case laminate myself. I hate you know, the traditional stuff where with the cover, the slip cover, you know, those are to make it easier to return books and stuff. I really dislike them. Yeah, no, they're not going to be. They will be. Well, it's called cloth cover, but we're not going to do. We don't do cloth cover. So, but yeah, there's going to be. Yeah, these are not limited editions, but what we are looking at doing is we're looking into the possibility of making all of them personalized. So we want to have we don't know yet whether that'll be the more expensive option or the standard option. They're going to be glossy finish. The matte finish on the case laminate doesn't look very well. I don't know if leather makes any sense. It might simply be too expensive. So, you know, we don't want to. We're looking into it. I don't know whether we can get that figured out in time to make it part of it. If it's possible, again, we're looking into it. If it's possible, we're going to make it so that the standard set at 350 is personalized. No, we're not going to do satin. Definitely not. So, anyhow, if any of you know, you know, we've gotten a couple recommendations for people that we can talk to about leather bindings. We're going to look into it. But most of what I have seen doesn't look terribly affordable. So, Deb Davis said on a previous stream, I thought Octavo was better, but the small increase in size for parents. Yeah, it's going to have the same page count. The interior of both the Octavo and the Royal Octavo are going to be exactly the same. Same layout, same information. It's just going to be bigger on the Royal Octavo. No, I'd love to do leather. I would love to do leather, but you know, in terms of cloth, no. I mean, look, I have lots of old cloth bound books. They don't hold up as well as the case laminate does. So, yeah, no, we're not, you know, we're going to keep it very simple. Digital edition, single volumes where you can order, you know, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want. It wouldn't make sense to order more than 3 because at $50, by the time you get to 150, 200 bucks, you might as well order the whole set. So, Thomas Corchesne says, Vox just finished reading Conservative. It was fantastic. I'm now reading SJW's Always Lie, Always Double Down, and I'm loving it. Excellent. No, I'm not likely to show you around my bookshelf. Oh, I should mention one other thing. I finished something today. Now this is just going to be very small, so like don't get, you know, too excited about it. but I think that it's going to be of a lot of interest. This is probably going to be one of the best-selling things that I write, in my opinion. I started doing this a while ago, but I couldn't finish it until recently. So this is going to be coming out pretty soon. I think it's only going to be, what is it, around, I think it's only like 30,000 words. So it's not massive. You don't want business focused books to be long. And so right now we're just, I finished my writing. I'm just waiting now. I'm just waiting now for the introduction and so forth. And so, but I think it's going to be very useful because the corporate cancer of SJW convergence really, really costs an incredible amount of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars. I type out every word. I'm not going to announce who's writing the foreword yet. It's somebody who is very much appropriate for this type of book. Who would you recommend gifting this to? Anybody who works in an office. Yeah, the best-selling political philosopher on the planet is kind of a bit much, a little bit rhetorical, but it definitely gets the point across. And it was actually true from 2015 through 2016 and well into 2017. I was the #1 best-selling political philosopher. So, it's a legitimate, or it's at least a defensible claim. Yeah, we intentionally designed it. Can these principles also be applied to churches? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get back to the Mere Christianity book club soon. Will it be out before Christmas? Yeah, both the corporate cancer and the Junior Classics crowdfunding campaign are going to begin be available in October. So, so it'll be interesting to see how it shakes up. Now let me get to the super chats. Frank Underwood says, is it true that democracy will empower the aristocratic class, leading to the fall of society because the king is made a figurehead? It's not because the king is made a figurehead, but the traditional balance is the king and the people versus the aristocrats. We currently live in a what you might call a concealed aristocratic society. If you notice, everybody that's doing everything is the son, the grandson, etc., etc. You can't get a job in Hollywood these days or you can't even get a job in modeling these days because it's all legacies. And so, it's not an open aristocracy, but it is a de facto aristocracy. Marie Golay says, Vox, love the show. I had to decide to send this to my grandmother or you. I remember that she hated me. No, actually, I was her favorite. She is dead. Thanks for the show. You're welcome, I think. Thomas W. said we should start calling secret kings supreme snark lords. I wouldn't recommend flattering them. M. Bolster throws in his customary $2. Thanks, Sam. Andy says, hey, Vox, whenever I debate people on the existence of God, I find myself running out of serious arguments. Of course you do, because they will keep throwing nonsense at you until you give up. What would be your strategy to thoroughly prove atheists wrong? I've done it. Read on the existence of gods. I mean, well, prove them wrong about what? Their arguments are easily proven wrong. That's in TIA. If you want to prove an argument for the existence of gods, conceptually, read on the existence of gods. If you want to prove the existence of Jesus Christ, that's a little bit more difficult, but if they accept the concept of evil, then they have fundamentally accepted the Christian framework. You just have to take it from there. Pastafaria says, thank you, Vox. I cannot type enough to elaborate here. Well, you're welcome. Whatever it is. Analysis Bear says, rumor has it Vox will soon begin rehab for addiction to the deadly combination of espresso and ibuprofen. Care to comment? It's espresso. There's no X. And there's nothing deadly about it. It's actually good for you. Science says. Given Sight Bear throws in a puzzle of 4 blank boxes, which I'm assuming is his PIN code or something. Asparagus Bear says, you all right, man? Tripping on ibuprofen again? I'm just concerned. I don't take ibuprofen very often. I probably don't take, I would guess that I don't even take 12 ibuprofen tablets a year, just to put it in perspective. I said, that's my headache cure, is espresso and ibuprofen, but I don't get headaches very often because the main reason I get headaches is because I haven't drank any caffeine in too long, and I'm usually pretty good about not letting that happen. New Tunes for Old Logos says, for your link to UNS today, essay was worth $2. Well, thank you. I think so too. I mean, UNS is really doing great work there. Unimaginative Bear says, you'd mentioned Mozilla is no longer a browser we can trust. That's true. I'm assuming you're referring to data mining, but I've been unable to find any information about it. Could you please elaborate? I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but they were basically getting into, or actually, now I remember, they're getting into thought policing, and had something to do with the ADL and keeping track of where you post and what you read and so forth. And it's actually worse than the stuff that you see from Facebook and Google. I mean, it's basically they want to try to turn it into, the SJW browser. Robert Dunn, you said Hitler was horrible for Germany. I think his evil was a tad more far-reaching than just Germany, in all fairness. Well, but so what? What matters is whether a national leader is good for their nation or not. It's normal. I mean, why would a German leader care particularly whether he's good for, the British or the Peruvians? But, when someone is truly evil, it's when they're bad for their own nation. That's what makes a leader bad, is being bad for their own people. Plenty of good leaders were very, very bad for other people. Alfred the Great was not good for the Danes. Hobby Bear says, damn it, Vox, I had plans this winter. Plans! Now with this database, all my free time is gone for the next 7 months. Seriously, though, thank you. You're welcome, and I know exactly how you feel. Marie wants to know, any special paper used for the books? Onion paper? No, we don't do that. Unimaginative Bear said, take my money. Okay, we can arrange to do that. Be a major player beyond 2050. Slanty Chauffeur Bear said, revelation from the Kurgan is you like long hugs. The Kurgan lies. I'm too far away, so have 5 buckaroos instead. Thank you on multiple levels. Frosty the Bear said, I ordered Owen's limited edition DVD. No need to keep one reserved any longer. Thanks. Okay. Good to know, Frosty, and thank you for the tour support. Yeah, I should mention, if you haven't supported Owen's tour and you want to, even though you can't possibly go to it, the t-shirts and limited edition DVDs and the special and all that stuff can be found there. There's 2 different t-shirts. There's the special, there's the documentary, which I think is going to be, that's what I'm particularly interested in seeing. And then there's the limited edition DVD, which will have both the special and the documentary on it, and probably a bonus or 2. Let's see here. Okay, so we're caught up on the super chats. That's good. Oh, I see they dinged the stream again. So, thoughts on Fomenko and his take on history? I don't have any takes on that. So, ethno-nationalism is not inevitable because it's redundant. I have no idea. I don't have any. I mean, anytime they push a movie that hard, I tend to wonder whether it can really be that good. But no, we'll see. So, can you think of any obvious lies in history that you'd like to elaborate? Shorts. We're going to ship them all out once the tour starts. So we'll probably get them shipping in a week or 2. You know, we're waiting to just get them all done at the same time. So, all right. Well, it looks like we're getting interrupted heavily here. So, but we're running out of time anyhow. So, thank you for tuning in. Definitely check out the UN's archive, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next Darkstream. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.